And as I mentioned earlier, as you guys were coming in and getting seated and signed, and on page Roman numeral 7 in your participant handbook, which looks like this, it is the page right after the table of contents, is a pre-test called 10 questions. And if you haven't already done so or need a couple minutes to finish filling it out, please go ahead and do so. We're not going to go over the pre-test at this time. We are going to do it at the close of Module 1. We'll go through and answer and see what, how you've done today. So I'll give you about a minute to go ahead and do that. Okay. Everybody got the questions done? You need a few seconds? Okay. Well, welcome everyone. I'd like to welcome you to Roma, Results-Oriented Management and Accountability Training today. Before we get started, I'd like to do a little bit of housekeeping for you guys. If you need the restroom, you exit this door, go to the right, and then it's the first left. If there is an emergency, like if we have a tsunami or fire, earthquake, or something like that, I will be leading you, and I'm going to direct you to go out this door if it's safe. We get clearance from the safety team. We're going to go around the corner, back to the back wall, take roll, and then wait until we get an all clear. But hopefully we'll have no tsunamis today. And also, I would appreciate it, so that everybody has the full attention of the class, that if you have a cell phone, if you could put it on stun or turn it off. And if you do need to take a call, like the Pope's calling or Obama's calling, and you got to take that call, if you could please step out this door here. This is a working office, and so if you're in the hallway, it's going to be disruptive to the rest of the staff that's working there. So at this time, what I'd like to do is introduce our host agency, which is Community Action Partnership of Riverside County. And we have the pleasure of having their executive director here today, Maria Juarez. Maria is a certified community action professional, a CCAP, and which is a national standing of great significance in the community action world. And I'd like to ask her to welcome you.
Well, welcome everybody. We're pleased to be hosting these Roma training sessions. And just a little bit of information. As you're aware, there's a lot of changes taking place on a national level, state level, and local level. You know, and these changes basically are designed to increase accountability, increase transparency, and results. So you can see how these training sessions come at a very appropriate time for all of us. In 2015, as Debra had mentioned earlier, all community action agencies are going to have to incorporate organizational standards. They're going to have to meet these core set of standards in order to continue as community action agencies. And a big part of these organizational standards is Roma. So we're excited to be hosting these training sessions. I'm glad to see all these bright faces participating in this Roma. And I hope that you embrace the training and use Roma in the proper management of your programs. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Maria had mentioned that it's a series of workshops. In the pre-workshop materials you got, which you got your participant book, there's a schedule. There's 4 more workshops after this one. It'll go all the way through December. They're staged about a little every other week, except in October. There's only 1 more in October. And so if you have any questions about the schedule, just ask me. So my name is Debra Jackson. I am also a CCAP, just like Maria, and a number of members of the Community Action Partnership, CAP Riverside staff. CAP Riverside is one of the few community action agencies across the country where a majority of their program managers are CCAP or in CCAP training. And I am going to be your intern Roma trainer for today. Just to give you a little information about the training program, and I do want to warn you there's going to be a lot of acronyms, so bear with me and I'll get through this alphabet soup of acronyms for you. But the training is guided by the National Peer-to-Peer, or the MPTP, Roma Training Program. The MPTP standardized the way Roma is taught. It was originally funded by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, HHS, Office of Community Services, OCS, through which we get the Community Services Block Grant, CSBG, funding. This is the primary funding that identifies an entity as a community action agency, which we call CAA. And it's supported by the State of California Department of Community Services and Development, CSD, along with the Community Action State Association, California-Nevada Community Action Partnership, or CalNEVA. It was developed by the Community Action Association of Pennsylvania and the Center for Applied Management Practices in Cap Hill, Pennsylvania. So this is where the actual training program was developed, with all of these entities giving support into it. And it was created to assure a standardized approach to teaching Roma practices and principles to community action agencies or CSBG subcontractors. You know that there are other entities that aren't community action agency, but they do receive a CSBG fund, primarily like tribal affiliations. I want to thank Community Action Partnership of Riverside County, CAP Riverside, for hosting this series of workshops. And we're going to get started now with some introductions. It's going to be very minimal from start. But I want to first introduce to you my Vanna White. We have on the videotape machine Richard Baker. He's going to be videotaping all of us, and hopefully he'll do it so I get an A for this workshop. So what I'd like to do is just we'll start around this side of the corner and go around. If you would give your name and then your title, your position, and the program that you work with, as well as what is it that you're hoping to learn from this workshop series. So name, title, program, and your hopes and dreams of Roma.
Okay, name is Lida St-Mark, and title is Community Program Specialist. I work at the Energy Department in charge of the Utility Systems Division. And my hopes in Roma is to learn as much as possible so that I can apply it in my current position and I can give as much as possible to the community and to my agency.
Okay, thank you, Lida.
Lida Placentia, and I am the Youth Program Manager. I oversee the youth programs, program, mentoring program, after school tutoring and mentoring programs. What I hope to gain from this training is applying the tools that we need to better report effectively and to just learn as much as I can and apply it to my daily tasks.
Okay, thank you.
Olga Sanchez, Program Manager for the Dispute Resolution Center. And my hopes for the Roma training is to be able to enhance my skills and be able to give more visibility to the services that we provide and to the self-sufficiency that we actually achieve with the program and the support that we give the community.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Godwin Imor, CCAP, the energy manager. What I plan to get from this training is to see how I might be able to tie the idea of Roma to what we are currently doing, how we can improve on service. If our service is effective and actually moving people out of poverty and giving them self-sufficiency. So how we can tie those two together with production and results.
Thank you, Colin.
My name is Kareem Ben-Gor. I'm the program manager for the Volunteer Income Tax and Earned Income Tax Credit Outreach. And what I'm looking to get out of Roma is another resource, another tool, and a set of skills that'll help me measure efficiency and also measure the outcomes of my program to make sure that I'm actually channeling the correct population and that we're moving them out of poverty and seeing what other opportunities we could provide them to help them become self-sufficient.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And Maria Juarez again, Executive Director here at CAP Riverside. And I have several goals for this workshop. Number one, a refresher course for myself. You know, I've participated in Roma training over the years. Also, to get all managers on board with Roma, to use Roma for the successful implementation of the organizational standards, and to maintain this department as the excellent agency.
Okay, thank you, Maria.
My name is Manita Tatami. I'm the program manager for the asset building programs here at Riverside Community Action Partnership. Excuse me. And I want to get a better understanding of Roma. I too had to lead a refresher course as Maria because we've done it a while back. And then I want to get a better knowledge of how to work with my programs, all of them combined, and how to better be able to serve the community with the Roma information.
Okay, great. Thank you, Anita.
Hi, Tamara Martin, Executive Assistant to our Director and to all the programs. Also Staff Secretary to our Commission, our Board. I'd like to be able to identify how to incorporate the goals outside of the agency goals in Roma, the family goals, the community goals, to be able to improve the productivity of our agency and to improve the way that the Commission operates.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Claudia Stalker, Supervising Accountant. I oversee the fiscal department, and I want to actually find out how Roma goals work, first of all, and how I can better facilitate all the program managers by learning the Roma goals.
Okay.
I'm Mark Burnt, and I'm an Administrative Services Analyst too in the Planning Division. And for me, I'm excited about the concept of Roma instead of just measuring or reporting numbers served or something like that, that it really goes for results in people's lives and changes in their lives and how to make that happen.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, everyone. And what I'm really pleased to hear is that you guys really are on target and on focus on what Roma's all about. Roma is about results. It's not about the services and the programs, though it helps and facilitates those. But the critical thing is about identifying, measuring, and analyzing the results of the programs and services that you put out there. So hearing that you are all looking at how you can do a better job of that, how you can identify what's working and what's not working, how you pull that all together in terms of how your agency operates I understand, you're an award for excellence winner, so how you maintain those standards, and just that understanding of how tools and resources can be integrated into your programs to help you do a better job in moving people out of poverty and serving people. And so I appreciate you sharing that with us. The structure of the training is going to be both lecture and hands-on activities. For Module 1, if you'll turn to page 1 in your training books, Module 1, as I have mentioned, has the most amount of lecture in it because it's the foundation, it's the history and practices of Roma. Now for those hands-on activity, in order to get you to help me, I would like to introduce to you another member of our team, Mr. Treats. Okay, and I'm going to give you a little demonstration of how Mr. Treat helps us. So, what holiday is Mr. Treats most commonly associated with?
October 31st, Halloween.
Kareem. Okay. So, you get to pick something from Mr. Treat's head.
Oh, man.
Okay.
I like
Thank
Mr.
you
Treat.
very much. So, as you guys are engaging and answering, Mr. Treat is going to come and reward you. Okay, but I'm going to pass him down to save time. We want no abuse of Mr. Treat as he passes to the person who is participating. Okay, so we're going to sit him right there. Think about Mr. Treats and how you're going to participate. Okay. So questions are welcome. This is a relationship of building a two-way dialogue. So feel free to ask me questions if there's anything that you don't understand or a concept that you want to have explained to you better. So you'll note in your manuals that there are modules. If you look at the table of contents, there are modules and there are appendices. Feel free between now and the next workshop, which is October the 15th, feel free to go through your training material, take a look at the appendices, and as you know, they will be a wonderful guide for you. We're going to be modeling a Roma principle, and that is that you need baseline data in order to have a starting point from which to measure. And one of the outcomes for this workshop series is to increase knowledge about Roma. Now, if you'll go back to page 1 again, I need a volunteer to read the first learning objective. Okay. Send Mr. Treat.
Okay, participants will be able to identify historical milestones of community action and understand how these relate to Roma implementation.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Treat is waiting by your side. Okay, can I get a volunteer for, okay. And you can pass him on over to Kareem for Mr. Treat. Kareem is gonna have a sugar high by the end of the day.
Participants will learn that community action agencies with a focus on family, agency, and community outcomes have always been designed to be more than simply direct service providers.
Great, thank you very much. And for the final objective, any volunteer? Okay, I saw Olga first. Kareem, if you'll pass Mr. Treat on down to Olga.
Participants will understand how lessons from history can help us identify future actions.
Okay. So now I want to draw your attention to our warm-up exercise that you were doing as we were preparing and getting ready. As you know, recall, there's a flip chart for each decade, starting from 1960 going through 2010. And can someone tell me why we started at 1960 instead of, say, 1940 or 1980? Okay, so just pass them down this way. That's correct. That's when community action started in 1960s. And can I get any volunteers to share from their life and the community action agency in the world what they wrote under 1960? You were here in 1960?
No, I wasn't.
Oh,
I was not here.
Were you born?
I was not thought of
You weren't
yet,
even
so.
a thought.
I wasn't. My mother was born in '59. So.
Okay, okay,
Oh,
Maria,
I'll pass it to
since
Maria.
I was born. In the 60s, a lot of my life was the focus on the war.
Okay,
Vietnam War.
yes.
I had three brothers that were drafted. So all that whole scenario, 2 of them went off to war,
Okay,
and one eventually was killed in Vietnam.
okay.
Yeah, so.
Thank you for sharing, appreciate that. What was going on with the CAA's CAP Riverside in 1960? Okay, nothing, okay, wasn't in existence yet. What about the world? Now, you mentioned the Vietnam War, what else might have been going on in the 60s?
Civil rights movement?
Yes, the civil rights movement was going on in 1960. What else was going on? Anything else?
The Beatles invaded.
Hey, okay, the Beatles invaded. Okay, so what about 1970s?
Still remnants of the war,
Okay,
Yeah, changes, a lot of changes.
a lot of changes.
okay. And what about Cap Riverside?
Oh, yeah.
It was established.
It was established in 1979, okay? And anybody have significant life experiences going on in the 70s?
That's when I graduated from college, from high school.
That's when you graduated from high school, was
Yeah,
in the
back then.
70s?
Yeah.
Okay. What about the 80s?
Oh yeah, that's my time.
Okay.
Riverside.
Wait a minute, I thought you were born in the 2000s.
No, I'm a millennial, but I was actually born in the late '80s. Yes.
Okay.
And
Okay, and how about Cap Riverside? What was going on, anybody know, in the 80s? There's something written up there, can you see that?
First CAP, Riverside.
Director.
appointed.
Yes, the first Cap Riverside director, and who was that?
Lois Carson.
Lois Carson, okay.
Wasn't that also the first weatherization programs established?
Yeah, I think that's when it started.
Okay, so that's when you guys
Wow.
started doing
What's that
weatherization.
in red? I don't know, it was like,
They crossed it off.
yeah.
It just says.
Oh, okay, maybe wrong decade. And what was going on in the world in the 80s?
Cabbage Patch
Cabbage
Dolls.
Patch.
Cabbage Patch Dolls, okay. Popular
New
culture.
wave.
It was the Reagan era.
Okay,
New
what
wave.
about the 90s?
Oh, Reagan. You know, remember the Iran Contra?
Yeah.
Iran.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay, so in the 90s, anyone born in the 90s? Or we all past the birth years?
I got some stairs.
That's when my
Yeah.
2 children were born.
And what was going
wow.
on with Cap Riverside?
98,
Year. I was here.
New programs.
Isn't that when you guys came under DPSS? Was it in the 90s?
No,
80s.
80s.
98, 98.
98.
Is when the agency was moved from being under the direct guidance of the Board of Supervisors to coming under another department, the Department of Public Social Services, or basically the Welfare Department. Okay, what was going on in the 2000s?
Jeez, everything.
Wasn't it?
War on
were
terrorism.
not in the 2000s?
I graduated high school, college.
You graduated from college, high
Yeah,
school?
and high school and college.
Elementary
We
school?
get
We had the recession, you had 9/11,
Yeah.
you had the
Yeah, that's
dot-com
right.
crisis, you had everything that's actually
Yeah.
vivid in my
Okay.
mind.
Okay. And what about the 2010, the last 4 years?
Well, 2005, Award for Excellence.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
won the award for excellence. And what happened in 2009 with the agency?
Became independent again.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
But
we
it was before that.
became independent again, but what significant program came into play in 2009? Anybody remember ARA?
Oh.
Yes, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act. And all, where you had, went from having only 3 subcontracted delegate agencies besides the weatherization department to over 24 delegate agencies working for 3 years in the county trying to solve the issues of poverty. Okay. Well, I appreciate all of you guys sharing, and I see, you can just pass the owl up and down the aisle and stuff like that and help yourself. But it's important for you to get a sense of history, not only what your history was, but the agency history, what was going on in the world. And this is a good segue into our first module, which is the history, purpose, and perspective of Roma. So in 1964, that's the beginning. And if I can have someone who hasn't had a chance to read yet, read the gray highlighted sentence under 1964. Okay, Alita?
Congress passed the Economic Opportunity Act, established and funding community action agencies and programs.
Okay, thank you, Alita.
August 20th, right?
Hey, good. Somebody has been tied into the 50th anniversary celebration of the War on Poverty, the Economic Opportunity Act, or as we call it, the EOA. And the enactment of the Economic Opportunity Act created the Community Action Network. In addition to the EOA, as you mentioned before as we were going through the decades, the Civil Rights Act was enacted in the same year, as well as other legislation that created programs such as Head Start. These new programs were part of Lyndon Johnson's Great Society, or as we know it and call it, the War on Poverty. And the original legislation supporting the Community Action Network, it provides the basis for family, community, and agency. And I want you guys to keep those 3 elements in mind, because it is a central thread that gets woven throughout these workshops because it's woven throughout Roma. It is through this legislation that the focus for community action agencies, or CAAs, is established. So we're looking at individual family self-sufficiency, community revitalization, mobilization of resources for anti-poverty purposes, working in partnership and collaboration with other organizations, and very importantly, agency accountability. We're going to talk a little later in this module about the refocus on agency accountability, but it's very important, particularly when we look at the organizational standards that are coming out. So 1970s, the mission and the model. Okay, so can I get someone who hasn't read before to read the gray highlighted area under 1970? Hey, Lenita, thank you.
The issuance of OEO Instruction 6320-1 established the mission and the model, family, agency, and community of community action.
Okay, thank you, Lenita. The Office of Economic Opportunity, or the OEO, Instruction 6320-1, and it was issued on November the 16th, 1970, provides a way to connect the current Roma principles with the original guidance found in this issuance. So community action, think about it, this is what you guys are all involved in, provides the opportunity for an individual or a family to become more self-sufficient and less dependent on subsidized support. So is that the population that you work with, people who are kind of currently at or below the poverty level or receiving subsidized? Okay. So now in that work that you're doing, or that community action does, it mobilizes community resources to improve the lives of low-income people and the communities in which they live. but it also enables communities to be more responsive to the needs of this population. It also holds community action agencies accountable by establishing realistic, attainable objectives expressed in concrete terms which permits the measuring of results. So it has to be attainable, it has to be realistic, and it has to be measurable, and it has to produce results. Now, this 6320-1 foreshadows the roots of the 6th National CSBG goal and the issuance of, you probably have heard this somewhere along the line, Information Memorandum, or IM 49, both of which we're going to talk about later. Now, just a little aside note, I don't know how many of you politicals around the table are interested in this little nugget, but just a note, Donald Rumsfeld and Dick Cheney were both early supporters of the Economic Opportunity Act. And that's a little surprising given their stances on poverty and helping people today, but they were early supporters. So 1974, what's in a name? And in 1981, the block grant A Change of Relationship. There are two key times in our history where changes to the language and administration at the federal level made an impact on the way CAAs operated at the local level. Can any of you think about what might have been going on in 1974 or in the early 80s that may have made a change on the Community Services Block Grant? Okay. So who was in office during that time?
Kennedy.
In 1974? Nixon.
Yeah.
Okay. And any idea what Nixon did? Well, specifically to community action. Was he a friend?
Oh, he wanted
He
to
wanted
kill.
to.
Yeah, he did. Not only did he want to eliminate it, but Gerald Ford did. However, there was so much congressional support for CSBG that they brought it back, and it became the Community Services Act in 1974. With this change, the Office of Economic Opportunity, or the EOE, okay, it was a federal cabinet level. It was reporting directly to the President of the United States. But in 1974, it was terminated and it was replaced by a department under the Department of Health and Education and Welfare, HEW, at that time. And it was called, anybody want to take a guess? The Community Services Administration, the CSA, okay? And so this move from a federal presence further away from the president came down to state levels. Would someone read the gray area under 1974 for me, please?
Sure. The change of name may have given an erroneous signal to the local CAAs who did not study the funding legislation. While the name of the legislation was changed from Opportunity to Service, the mission and purpose of the funding remained unchanged.
That's a key critical point. Even though the name changed, the mission and the purpose of the legislation did not. It was still about family, community, and agency. So now in 1981, the Community Services Block Grant was actually created, and it decreased the role and responsibility of the federal government, but it increased the role and responsibility of state governments. And that's how, who in California is the person that is responsible for managing the CSBG funds?
CSD.
CSD, the Community Services and Development Department of California. Now, the federal role was mostly limited to funding while the state became active administrators with responsibility for planning, fiscal management, and reporting. So that's one of the reasons why you are sending your reports that you do to the state, as opposed to, even though CSBGs are federal dollars, instead of sending it to Washington, you're sending it to the state. Again, this change in the administration of community action funding from direct funding to direct federal to states as the intermediary did not change the mission or the purpose of the funding. Okay, so that brings us to 1981, and can I get a volunteer to read the highlighted area?
State offices were now installed as recipients of the block grant funding and therefore as intermediary for local community action agencies.
Okay, great, thank you, Godwin. Okay, so now that takes us to 1993, which is about measurement and accountability. And I need that volunteer again for the gray area. Anyone who hasn't read before?
The purposes of this act are to improve federal program effectiveness and public accountability by promoting a new focus on results, service, quality, and customer satisfaction, and to help federal managers improve service delivery by requiring that they plan for meeting program objectives and by providing them with information about program results and service quality.
Okay, great, thank you, Vita. Okay, so now this moves us into one of my favorite acronyms, the Government Performance and Results Act, GPRA, mandated that all federally funded programs be able to establish performance goals and measure results. The language in the GPRA legislation reflects the body of knowledge applicable to the management of organizations. So we're talking about how well do you manage these management skills and resources and tools. GPRA mandated that some of these sound management practices would become part of the reporting and monitoring functions of the federal government. So while administration of the funding is at the state level, the management and accountability for reporting and results still stayed at the federal level with GPRA. And so a viable nonprofit or government community action agency can't operate without the GPRA requirements. So the GPRA Act established performance goals. The goals were objective, quantifiable, and measurable. GPRA described operational processes, skills, technology, human capital, information and other resources. It also established performance indicators, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. It provided a basis for comparing actual results to what was projected. So you've got, this is what I think we will do, this is what I actually did, compare them and see what's the analysis of that. You know, were you successful? Can you replicate this? Or do you need to make changes to be more effective? And it's a means to verify and validate. We all want to keep that CSBG funding coming. So we need to be able to verify and validate for the federal government that results are happening in our local area. Now, for those of you who are in love with this acronym like I am, and you want to read the full body of text on GPRA, nice reading. There is a website, and I'd be happy to provide it to you after the workshop, where you can go and download the whole GPRA text and read it. But while GPRA was the motivation for a review of our original purpose and direction, the seeds of Roma have always been with us. So let's talk about seeds. 1994, the 6 national goals. Now, can I get a volunteer to read the shaded area under 1994? Okay, Claudia, thank you.
The 1994 amendment to the CSBG Act in response to GPRA specifically mentioned a requirement for CSBG eligible entities to provide outcome measures to monitor success in 3 areas: promoting self-sufficiency, family stability, and community revitalization.
Thank you, Claudia. Okay, now they're, like with the federal government, they love task force. So there was another task force that was established, and it was called the Monitoring and Assessment Task Force, or MATF. And it was created by the Office of Community Services, OCS, to explore the results that had been identified by various community action agencies across the country. And the MATF was comprised of a lot of stakeholders from a lot of various levels. So not only were there executive directors, there were administrators on the state level, there were people from the federal level. As a matter of fact, and this is probably before everybody's time, except maybe Maria. I don't know if John Lingefelter was still alive when you were here. Okay. John Lingefelter, which you guys, I understand, have a conference room named after, was the planning manager for CCAP Riverside, and he was known nationally for his innovation and worked very closely in the development of these 6 national goals and with the MATF. So you guys should be proud that you actually have someone from this agency who was a part of creating these goals. So let's take a look at the 6 national goals. This is a way to talk about Roma. And if you will look at the flip chart, and then it's also in your book. Could someone read the first goal? Not maybe necessarily from here, but from your book.
Low-income people become more self-sufficient.
And is that a family, community, or
That's family.
agency? That's a family goal. Okay, how about number 2?
Sure. The conditions in which low-income people live are improved.
Okay.
Community.
Community. Okay, and goal number 3.
Low-income people own a stake in their community.
Okay. And is that family, agency, or?
Community.
Community. Okay, goal number 4.
Partnerships among supporters and providers of services to low-income people are achieved.
Okay.
Agency.
Okay, great, thank you. Goal number 5.
Agencies increase their capacity to achieve results. Agency.
Agency. Okay, and goal number 6.
Low-income people, especially vulnerable populations, achieve their potential by strengthening family and other supportive systems. Family.
Okay. Now, is there anything that you notice about these 6 goals when it comes to the 3 different elements?
There's 2 for
Yes.
each.
Yes, correct. There are 2 for each of them. And that makes it very easy to remember, particularly when you're working with your programs and you're developing outcomes. You have family goals which deal with the individual on the personal level. You have 2 community goals which deals about with relationships, partnerships, resources within the community. And then you have 2 agency goals which deal with resources, largely money, but also the skills and the management practice for the agency to be effective and achieve those results. 1994 is when we actually had the introduction of Roma. And the MATS advised the Office on Community Service, OCS, to support the development of its own management and accountability practices. Now keep in mind, OCS was created to manage community action. So what MATF is saying, you as community action, as a government program and service, you need to develop some guidance for your own type of program, your own type of service. So Roma is specific, and these national goals are specific to community action. So can I get a volunteer to read 1994? Okay, do we need to send us the treats around again? Okay, thank you, Olga.
The 1994 amendment to the CSBG Act in response to GPRA specifically mentioned a requirement for CSBG eligible entities to provide outcome measures to monitor success in 3 areas: promoting self-sufficiency, family stability, and community revitalization.
Okay, and how about the 2 points that are in the shaded area? Was that the shaded area under 1994?
Yes.
It was?
There's 2 mentioned
Oh,
Oh, okay, sorry. Okay.
MATF recommended a system to be known as Results-Oriented Management and Accountability, or ROMA. ROMA was defined as a performance-based initiative designed to preserve the anti-poverty focus of community action and to promote greater effectiveness among state and local agencies receiving Community Service Block Grant CSBG funds.
Okay, great, thank you. So Roma was developed to support the management of community action agency. And it was in response to the Debra requirement. Remember that mandated that there was a management policy going on. And at this time, the Community Action Agency Network, it was voluntary for them to implement Roma, but change was coming down the road. Okay, so just a little taste of something that we're going to be doing later on, and it's not flipping pages. Logic models. Oh, I know you all wanted to come today to learn about logic models. But does this look familiar to you? Mm-hmm. Okay. And would someone please read under 1996, the shaded area?
Roma incorporates the use of outcomes results into the administration, management, operation, and evaluation of human services.
Okay, and the second part of it.
Local CAAs were asked to focus on achievement of outcomes in addition to the traditional counting of clients and units of services.
Okay, thank you very much, Alicia. Now, as Roma began to spread through the CSBG network, OCS supported the development of this training program to standardize the way CAAs across the country thought about Roma, including the basic set of principles and practices that were to become the framework for implementation. One of the tools that became a part of the Roma training was a modification of the logic model. Now, the logic model was created in 1970 by a gentleman named Joseph Woley, W-H-O-L-E-Y. And it was developed for program evaluation. And in your appendix, in your training manual, you'll see a section that talks about, Woley and the different variations of the logic models as it was developed. Okay, so now this is the logic model, and it's just a preview because you're going to find over the next 4 workshops that we do, we're going to be filling these out. We're going to be developing, and this is going to be part of your hands-on exercise. But right now, in building it, you've got the organization in this corner, and there should be a picture of a completed logic model for you. Okay, and then what your program may be now, maybe it might be peer mediation. Okay, and so is it a family goal? Is it an agency goal? Or is it a community goal? Or is it a multiple of goals? Can you see it going across the 3 different elements? What do you say, Olga? Would peer mediation fit in all 3, or would it just fit in a couple, just one?
I see it fitting in all 3.
In all
I think
3.
it has a ripple effect on the family as an individual and then the community and agency as a whole.
Okay, great. Okay. And then these columns we're going to talk about in more detail. You do have a completed example in your book, but you'll get a better idea of how this works as we actually do the hands-on exercises. So, in 1998 was the last time that the CSBG Act was reauthorized. Now, do any of you guys know what's going on right now in Washington with the Community Action Network in regards to reauthorization?
Yes, currently there's an effort to get it reauthorized. It's been rewritten and it's been introduced.
Okay, but it hasn't been reauthorized yet. It's been since 1998 since it's been reauthorized, and it's going on continuing resolutions, which puts us in a very vulnerable place because there is nothing in place right now that says this happens. You know, it's from year to year that we have to go through this and go through, you know, budget and allocations and stuff like that. So, would someone please read the shaded area under 1996 for me? 96. 98.
1988.
Oh, I didn't read my own notes. Okay, so 98.
Okay. The 1998 reauthorization required outcome reporting for all CAAs and CSBG eligible entities beginning October 1st, 2001.
Okay, so what change happened?
It became required as opposed to just
Voluntary, that's correct. So since 2001, we are required to report these results. It is no longer optional. And when the rollout of enforcing organizational standards start in 2015, they are rolling out enforcement of Roma. Okay, so this is a good stopping point to take a 10-minute, as I call them, bio breaks. And if you need to, there's refreshments, there's coffee, whatever, or, you know, as I said before, the restrooms are out the door, or if you need to call around, that Roma becoming mandated in 2001. So we did get that direction from the Office of Community Services, and it was the first time that there was a mandatory report. So if I could get someone to read the shaded area on page 8 under 2001, please. Any volunteers?
Sure. In this IM, state offices and CSBG eligible entities were provided with guidance regarding the implementation of Roma and core activities to assist them in preparing for mandatory performance reporting.
Okay. So this is, if there's any IM that most people in community action are familiar with, it's IM 49. And it is a public policy document that actually sets Roma within the context of compliance under Debra. It provides guidance for both state CSBG agencies, so it's not just the agencies out there, it's the state office that administers and distributes CSBG. And the community action agencies for managing client activities and reporting results. So IM 49 is a key thing to remember. And for all of you who are in the CCAP track and the elite learning track, this is one that you want to become very familiar with. There's valuable language in IM 49 that's useful for Roma implementation under CSBG and implementation in community action agency. Roma is included in the 1998 reauthorization about identifying, measuring, and analyzing results in addition to reporting on the number of clients who received the service or participated in an activity. And before, people just thought you do the number count. You know, how many did I serve? The unit of service, what kind of activity. They weren't reporting what the results were. Did you have a question, Godwin?
Yes. Does this information memo also refer to CDBG?
Yes, no,
I mean,
no,
does
no.
it
CD
guidelines
yeah,
also?
no. CDBG is a completely separate block of money. Now, it came out of the same suite of legislation, but it's the Community Development Block Grant. IM 49 only refers to community action agencies and CSBG. It's the same way as Head Start would have had their own IM to inform how you manage that program. So now IM 49, it was issued on February the 21st, 2001, just before the first mandatory Roma reporting, provided guidelines to states and local CAAs on how OCS viewed the implementation of Roma. And as we all know, one of the most important person that you want to satisfy and whose view you want to understand and know is who's giving you money. So their viewpoint is very important. It doesn't matter how you want to do your program, you need to first do it by who's giving you money to do it. Okay? Now, I don't know how many of you have heard, and every time I say her name, I butcher it, Margaret Waschnitzer. Oh, okay. She had been the director of the Office of Community Services for a number of decades. Wonderful woman. She was the woman that I went to a CalNAVA conference, and she's talking to all of these CAP agencies in California, and she goes, you know, many of you are just simply unremarkable. And they were all set to be told they were remarkable because they were only doing the bare basic to get their funding. They were not measuring, they were not analyzing, they were not going beyond and above emergency services. They were not really looking at how do they move families into self-sufficiency. How do they move communities into being resources to support self-sufficiency? And how were they building their agency's capacity to develop these skills in the people that they were serving? She was very instrumental in helping to define the management practices throughout the network in implementing Roma and the value that was there. So IM 49, this is a point you want to remember, is the document that most clearly defines Roma. And I have a copy of it. I can show it to you at the end of the session. If you are interested in seeing IM 49, I actually recommend that all of you have a copy of it just for reference. So if you want, I can also email it to each and every one of you so you have your own copy. IM 49 reminds us of the original purpose of our network, and it focuses on family, agency, and community levels, the 6 national goals, that were before the Roma model. And there's more information about IM 49 on the following page, page 9. So why don't we turn to page 9, and if I can get that volunteer again to read the shaded area. Okay, well, good, thank you.
CAAs must not focus on program-based delivery systems, but rather see how programs work together within the agency to promote changes, not just to provide units of service. The effectiveness of CAAs is measured by the positive impact on the client resulting from participation in one or multiple programs of the CAA. CAAs work to improve their community as well as their own agency management processes.
So, and how about someone reading the next shaded area?
Emphasizes the interdependence of the family, agency, and community levels whose effectiveness depends on sound agency management.
Okay. So how many of you are familiar, I mean, what's the term that we talk about or describe an agency to be when there isn't that interdependence amongst programs? Think about a farm. Silo. Okay. So Roma's talking about what?
Partnership.
Buying sheets? No, is that what you said?
Partnership. Working
Oh,
together.
partnerships, okay. I heard you said sheep, guys. Thank you for that clarification. But partnerships is about working together. I know that at CAP Riverside, you guys often talk about cross enrollments into programs so that a person doesn't, Roma and CSBG doesn't succeed as an individual program. It is a suite of programs and services working together to drive a result, to drive a change either within family, community, or agency. And when all of these three elements are working together as one towards that mission and goal of moving communities and families out of poverty, that's when you start seeing the seeds of and the reapings of success. So let's go for volunteer for that last shaded section.
I'll do it. Establishes that CAAs work best in partnership with other community-based organizations. That CSBG funds are used to leverage other resources, and that all activities and outcomes of a CAA, whether funded by CSBG or other sources, are reportable.
Okay. So can someone give me an example from their program of how you leverage? Okay.
Well, my program is entirely volunteer-based and in-kind partnerships. So we leverage the labor time of volunteers, their skill set. We also receive in-kind training materials from the IRS, and then we create multiple partnerships throughout the county to provide these services through our volunteer labor.
Okay. And so do you get CSBG funding to help support your program?
Partially. But yeah, well, you know what? Yeah, we do. We do get some funds that help support the outreach and the administration because my program is all-encompassing.
Okay.
So, yes.
So you basically, you're, not only are you going out to community to leverage volunteer time, which we call in-kind, it's non-cash resources, but what other funding do you get besides CSBG?
VITA, which is a grant provided through the IRS.
Okay, so you're getting federal funding from the IRS, you're getting federal funding through CSBG, and you're getting community support, which is non-cash. And you bring all of these together to support and facilitate a service, a program to community. And it impacts the individual, because you're doing tax returns, right?
Yes.
Okay, and what do you get after you get a tax return done?
Typically, you get cost savings from tax separation. In California, the average cost is $280.
Okay.
And then you also potentially, if you qualify, you get a refund, which could be a child tax credit, earned income tax credit,
Okay.
or the American Opportunity Credits.
Okay, so that's ka-ching in
Yeah.
your pocket.
Yeah.
And if it's in your pocket and you live in community, it's going to be ka-ching for
Yeah.
the community.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
so that's how we take and leverage those non-cash resources and other cash resources to bring back to support the community in which we serve and that we operate. Okay, so now we're going to talk about everyone's favorite national performance indicators. Second to logic models, I have heard that this is the favorite of program management managers nationwide. So let's turn to page 10. And how about somebody reading the shaded area under 2005 at the bottom of page 10?
The mandatory performance reports to OCS include national performance indicator data as of fiscal year 2005.
Okay. So now NPIs, or National Performance Indicators, became mandatory July 1st, 2005. And part of what happens is that it takes the 6 goals And it starts identifying them in increments of activity for you to be able to measure and tie back to the performance goal. In order for us to be talking the same picture nationwide, we have to have some type of standardization of the NPIs. We need to be able to compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges. But one of the beautiful things about community action is that it isn't a top-down, federal government down to local level, this is what you gotta do. They allow for what is called local determination. So most states, including California, will assess what are the particular needs of Californians and then develop performance indicators to go along with that and to blend in and to report out the Roma goals. Now, I had the pleasure of serving on the state task force that helped revise and develop the state's national performance indicators. And that was a number of years ago, but they have not done any revisions since then. So now I understand Roma Next Generation, which we'll talk about later, is about how do we revise and update Roma to be in compliance and to facilitate the organizational standards. But right now there have not been any changes to the NPIs. They have a long history in national data reporting, and there have been a number of people that have been involved from the community action agencies and state offices since 1983 have been building these performance indicators. And prior to mandating reporting date, that reporting date, a lot of states were already doing this, incorporating national performance indicators, California being one of them. So I just passed out to you CAP Riverside's performance indicators that went with 2014 contract, CSBG contract. And I understand that one of the things that your planning division does is that they go around and help each program develop logic models which then tie into outcomes that may be generated by a particular funder or program and service, and that they assess those outcomes to the 6 goals and the performance indicators to see where this information can be reported. So what you're going to find at the back of the NPI is verification and validation that these numbers have a foundation to be built on. And you can find your own program under several of the goals. You'll generally find them under the family, agency, and community. Either you as individual program managers will come under agency, and your programs will come under community and family. But that worksheet is what is used to inform the numbers that are reported on the NPIs. An NPI work plan is submitted with each CSBG annual contract. This is what the state is holding your agency to, and it gets reported 2 times a year. Midterm, which is the first half of the year, and is due like July the 20th. And then for the complete year from January through December, which is due March the 20th. But that's for your own reference. And I understand it's getting close to the time we'll probably see the contract. You know, all agencies in California will probably start seeing their 2015 contracts come down in December. So I imagine your planning department is probably going to be visiting each and every one of you to help update those numbers as we go into 2015. Okay? So in 2006, the Roma cycle became a visual to help you understand implementation of Roma. And if you'll look on page 11, you're going to see that cycle. Here's the poster. Okay, so we first start with assessment. What are some of the things that you guys do to assess the state of your community and your customers? Okay, a community needs assessment. What are some other ways that you assess that?
Surveys.
Surveys, very good, okay, okay. Any other way that you might get that information from your customer about what they need or what they think the community needs?
Other data.
Other data? Like from other agencies?
Other agencies that may have done a needs assessment.
Okay, okay, good, good. I understand that you guys have a really good partnership with like agencies like Public Health. They do food stamp and WIC. That you also have a good rapport with law enforcement agencies throughout the county. So a lot of those places can inform and be a part of this assessment. Okay, so what do you need to plan? What kind of documents would you want to have available and handy when you're going in to plan your programs and services?
A mission statement or objective?
Your mission statement. And what is the mission of CCAP Riverside?
To empower Riverside County.
Okay, so can you guys, I believe that you have a copy of it with your book? Okay, so what is the mission, if you want to recite it together, that is going to be guiding you?
Community Action Partnership of Riverside County with the community strives to eliminate poverty by facilitating opportunities for self-sufficiency through education, wealth building, advocacy, and community organizing.
Wonderful, wonderful. You're going to find when we get into module two, when we get to module 2, that we're going to be talking more about mission statements, but this is foundational to your planning. If you're not planning to be aligned with your mission, you're planning not to achieve the kind of results that your agency wants to achieve. Okay, so you have the assessment, which goes into informing the planning, and then after planning, what do?
Implement.
You implement, okay? And while you're implementing it, what's the next step in the cycle?
Results.
Okay, so you're getting the results, and how are some of the ways that you get the results? Reports? Yes, reports. Something that Alita said earlier?
Surveys.
Surveys, okay. How many of you do case management? Okay, so what do you have to document your case management?
Notes.
Case notes. So all of those are different ways, different tools that you use of documenting the achievement of the results. And then what do you do with this documentation? Analyze it. Yeah. Yeah, we have somebody on your staff keys that data into a database to help analyze it. And all, but you do the evaluation. And after you analyze the data, what do you do with the analysis?
Use that to grow your program or to
Check for changes.
What's working? What needs to be improved? What could you replicate or grow? You know, maybe for the next contract year, if you were able to, let's say, you know, you're the asset building, let's say you had a outreach strategy that was so successful that you met all your target numbers in half the time. So maybe for the next year or the next grant cycle, you might want to say, okay, with this strategy, we could do more. You know, we could replicate this and we could do more. So you do an analysis of what results you have, what did you achieve, how you can make changes, what you can replicate, and what you need to drop. Some programs, and this is hard for agencies and particularly hard for boards, once they start a program, they don't ever want to give it up, no matter how failing that program is. But if you put it to the test of the Roma cycle, and you just say, look at that one service, you go straight to the horse's mouth, your customer, your number one stakeholder. Do they need the service in the first place? Is this an area where they want to change? Then you start planning. Does it fit with our mission statement? You know, is it giving us, putting us in the direction we need to go? Can we implement it? Or does it cost us more to run the program than what the results are bearing? Are we even getting results? And then you evaluate it, you analyze it, you see what the numbers say, and then what do you do with that number? What's the thing that people look for after you do an analysis?
Results.
Results? But how do you communicate the results?
Reporting.
Reporting. You have a board. They get board reports. You're a public cap, right?
Yes.
Okay, so who's your top level of governance? Board of Supervisors. Wouldn't they like to know? So wouldn't you give a report to the Board of Supervisor? What kind of report does an agency generally have that communicates to community at large?
Your annual report.
Annual report, newsletters, you know, strategic plans. This whole cycle is the foundation to providing those reports, reporting your results. And when you report the results, you're reporting what you're achieving in family, agency, and community. So this cycle, think of it as a mental model as we begin to use it throughout these workshop series. Think of it, I need to assess, I need to plan, I need to implement, I need to achieve results, and I need to evaluate. Okay? So let's see what the Obama administration was up to on page 12. Okay, so the Obama administration came into office with a refocus on accountability. That's a very important thing. People who give you money want to know what you're doing with it. You know, you need to be accountable. And something Maria said in her reading about transparency and results, which was an outgrowth of the ARA Act, it's something that has been refocused on and in 2009 when ARA was implemented. One reporting document that came out of that time period is called the Performance Progress Report, PPRs. Do you guys do PPRs?
Yes.
Okay. And how often do you do the PPRs? Okay, and what kind of things are you reporting? What would you look at in your report that tells you you're accountable for the services and programs that you're charged with?
Well, it measures your goals and then it sees where you are.
Okay, okay. And how does it do that? What information do you put in that report that tells me that?
When you put the numbers, how
Numbers.
close you are to your objective, any challenges in reaching your objective, outreach, numbers, and success stories.
Yes, we love success stories. The network is the best kept secret across the country. We do not toot our own horn often enough. One of the things that Roma does is gives us a standardized way of nationally tooting that horn. We need to send a message to our elected official that this is necessary. But if you don't tell the story in data, success stories, narratives about what's working, what's not working, as we talked about, the achievement of results and evaluation, no one will know. And if no one knows about you, no one cares about you. So this is how important and how critical Roma in reporting is. We need the nation to care about the poor. And you guys are the instruments of getting that message out. And you do it through Roma. Okay, so 2011, there's a new strategy for excellence. Now, we're still on page 12, but we're now talking about another IM, and that's IM 123. And what that does is that it provides key guidance on national issues that have been identified as priorities for community action. Employment's one of them. Food security or food insecurity, people going hungry, the basic needs in order to take care of you so that you can go about getting education, getting a job, buying a first house, starting a business, going back to school. So now this page basically identifies 2 recent messages that our network has received that indicates that we have to become more ready to observe. So you're observing here and here, measure, and report. They are charging us to do more of that, not to be unremarkable, but to be remarkable on behalf of the customers that you serve. You know, I remember there was one conference we went to, and I can't remember his name. He had been the director of the National Association in Washington. But he said at the end of it, and we have it, I think I saw a mug in your agency that had it, what have I done today to end poverty? That's what you need to be asking every day. You need to be observant, you need to be analyzing, you need to be measuring, and you need to be reporting. You need to be about the work of ending poverty. And you need to use these tools. That's why they've made it mandatory. So if you turn to Module 2, this is what we're going to be looking at on October the 15th. Take a look at some of the information that's in there. You're going to be doing some hands-on activities in small groups and in large groups and individual. You know, I won't volunteer anybody. I'll let you volunteer on your end. And Mr. Treat is going to go back into his little hoot owl tree until October the 15th, and hopefully you guys will be inspired like you were today to continue to answer and be engaged. So I bet the next thing you want to know is, what are those answers to the 10 questions? Okay. So if you'll turn back to Roman numeral 7, and there are 10 questions, but there's 2, 4, 6, 8. Hey, there are 10 of you. Now, forget what I told you about voluntold. We're going to voluntold on this side, and you each are going to answer one. Okay, so you start with 1, Mark. Read the question and then your answer.
Okay. Community action agencies most effectively evaluate the results by focusing on the activities supported exclusively by the Community Services Block Grant. I chose false.
False.
This is false.
So now what makes that false? Exclusively. Who do you work with when you go to work for the poor? The community. Are they a part of the CSBG network?
Yes.
Sometimes, no, okay, no. Remember, CSBG is the primary funding source that identifies an entity as a community action agency. You are not a community action agency if you're not receiving CSBG funds. But your partners, what about that leveraging we talked about? Corinne gave us an excellent example of non-cash leveraging with community volunteers. So the word exclusively is what makes this false. Okay, Claudia.
CSBG funds are a dedicated funding stream to support the work of community action. True.
I'm going, oops, did I give that answer away? Thank you, Claudia. Okay, Tamara.
Roma is the term for the required reporting of data to a state and the federal government. I put false.
Yes, that's correct. Okay, and what makes that false?
Because Roma is the performance-based management system. It's not the requirement for the reporting of the data.
It informs the report, but it is not the report itself. It is a management system. It's a set of principles and practices. Okay, number 4, Linda.
CAAs are expected to focus on moving individuals and families to self-sufficiency and on community transformation, in addition to providing services to low-income people. I said true.
That is correct. That is correct. Now, what's the other element that they didn't address in there? They did family, they did community. Agency. Okay. Number 5, Maria, please.
CAA programs are designed so that clients who participate in their services achieve measurable results. True?
Absolutely. Absolutely true. Okay, Kareem, how about number 6?
Analysis of the agency's results can be used to identify effectiveness and performance of an agency. I put true.
That's true. That's where you got your evaluation on the Roma cycle. No, excuse me, Godwin, number 7?
Okay, the use of results instead of services may reduce the agency competitiveness and marketability because of low number of results reported. That's true. Oh, it's false, I put false. I had false on it.
It goes along with those false sheep. Yeah.
I had false on it. I said it was false.
Okay, okay. So why do you think that might be false? Kind of logically process it out of what we've been talking today.
Because
Result just gives you.
result is, we want to do results instead of the services, we want results.
That's correct.
Yeah, so,
That's correct.
Funders want results,
yeah, yeah.
something concrete.
Yes.
Yeah.
They want to see change. And funders today are investing in social change. They are investing in the change in individuals. They're investing in the change in community. That's what they want to see. I can feed 1,000 people, but does that keep them from being hungry the next day? But if I teach them how to get a job, and they get a job, and they're able to buy food, are they coming to my food pantry for that bag of food? Yeah, maybe. If they're working poor, they might be, but you know what? They're not coming as often. That's the results the funder wants to see. Where is the change from poverty to self-sufficiency and the transformation of a community that's supportive of those changes? Okay, so that makes it false. So let's go to number 8. Number 8, Olga.
Community action agencies select services to offer based on available funding, not necessarily on the identified community needs. A bit false.
Absolutely. You know, they talk about, funders talk about the tail wagging the dog, where you go after funding because it's money and it's not a match to what your mission is. You should always look for money to support your efforts, your mission, your cause. You don't let that drive what you're doing, because then that puts you away from family, agency, and community, and the mission of community action to address poverty, to make, develop, create, enhance, facilitate self-sufficiency. So number 9.
Results-oriented management and accountability, parentheses Roma, is the CAA term for a range of agency operation and administrative activities in addition to reporting. I put true.
That's correct. It is a set of principles and practices. Okay, and Lita, you get the very last one.
Okay, implementing Roma in your CAA will affect the planning and fiscal functions.
but will not affect the way programs and services are delivered. I say it's true? Yes?
Okay. So now, if we go to this, the evaluation, what were we talking about? What are we looking for when we measure results to actual? Anybody? Impact. What works? You know, what should be replicated, what should be changed, what should be modified? So it impacts the delivery of services because you're evaluating, did it work in the first place? Did it deliver the results that you were shooting for? And if it didn't, what can we do differently for that? And I'm going to let Mr. Treat visit with you because you were the very last one. Okay? So those are the answers. How did you guys do? Was this something pretty much that you got most of, at least maybe 50% of the questions right?
Yes.
Okay, so you're all invited back next time. Hey, that's the incentive. So in closing, what I want to do is just give you some key summary points for you to take away. And then we're going to meet again promptly at 8:30 is when I will actually start the workshop session. Please bring your books every time you come. And the next meeting is here in this room on October the 15th. And I believe you have a blue schedule. Mm-hmm. Yes. And I know that I sent out this email, but it was just a rumor that I sent out an email that said if I changed the schedule again, everybody got a Starbucks card.
Oh, yes. I saw Olga's reply.
We're sticking to the schedule. I'm the only one here. Okay.
Olga's crossing her fingers.
So for Module 1, History, Purpose, and Perspective, there are 5 key points that you should take away from this module. And the first one is Roma is a set of principles and practices, and it's grown out of a very rich history. This isn't something that was just developed a couple years ago. It's been in the process for decades. Standardized reporting of outcomes is mandated for all community action agencies since 2001. And what does that mean? We have to do it. We can't think about we want to do it. We have to do it. The current reporting tool is based on a set of national performance indicators, and they get informed and developed by you guys locally on the Roma cycle. They gives you the steps to be able to develop those performance indicators. The framework for achieving outcomes include a full range management and accountability activities as depicted by the Roma cycle. So these are the full range of management activities that you engage in order to facilitate and maximize the results that you're looking for. And there is a new focus on performance measurement. And that focus is valid, that focus is helpful, that focus is required. And that focus you will start seeing as these organizational standards and Roma Next Generation starts rolling out. So we might as well get prepared for it now. The nice thing that I hear about CCAP Riverside is that you guys have been doing Roma since 2000. And that you engage it in everything that you do. Everything is lined up. So you guys have a step up. There are 1,100 community action agencies across this country, and CCAP Riverside is at the top of those 1,100 in implementing Roma in everything that you do. So my hat's off to you. Congratulations. And I understand that if y'all don't eat that food back there, you got staff outside that door that will. So thank you very much. There is a evaluation. That's my tool to assess what I need to do differently for the next module. So it's very important. Plus I need to send that in with the videotape for my assessment. So I would appreciate, I expect to get 10 of those back. And you can just leave them right up here, turned over. you know, I won't tell your planning director to come visit you first,
Yeah.
depending on what you write on your evaluation.